Hey there, nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we're back with another episode of Commander Cheapskate Gamer Reviews. This series is dedicated to showing you different products related to the miniature wargaming hobby, and on today's episode, we're going to take a look at the latest supplement from Games Workshop, which is Apocrypha Necromunda. This is actually one of the new rulebooks that they've actually put together and are selling ready for pre-order now for you to take a look when it comes to the different rule sets from Necromunda Apocrypha that they released either through digital supplements or from rules from White Dwarf, and they basically compiled it all into one giant book for you to be sold to you guys either on physical copy or digital copy. So today we're going to take a look at the contents of this product and give our overview about it, whether we think it's a good buy or not. So that being said, because this video is a little bit more of a deeper dive, I will put timestamps in the description box down below. That way you can click and navigate to the part of the video that interests you the most. So that being said, let's talk about Apocrypha Necromunda. Alright, so up first, let's talk about what exactly is new in this booklet. And the reason why I say that is because, I'm just going to be honest with you guys, about 80% of this book is actually things that they've already printed out before. There's very little actual new material in this book. If you went to the Warhammer community page and download rules from the Apocrypha Necromunda releases that they've had over the past year and a half, or if you actually subscribe to White Dwarf and see some of the article tiles they have there. So a lot of these things are already available already, and that's the thing that's kind of like a downer on this one. So because of that, we're going to start off with the new stuff that they have here. Now they have two new things that are actually quite interesting here that they actually have. First of all, we have Untitled Nemesis in Necromunda, which is actually kind of interesting. What ends up happening is that in this book, they actually give you the actual ability to create what is known as an Untitled Nemesis, basically a big bad that you could actually have to be like the one pulling the strings or having a huge effect on the actual campaign setting that your players are playing in. Now, the nice thing about that, of course, is that it actually gives a nice segue to narrative gaming, and a really big aspect of Necromunda is on that narrative gaming piece. That's actually a huge aspect of playing in Necromunda. So if you're one of those kind of players who like to delve a little bit more in the role-playing aspect of Necromunda, this would definitely be for you. You could actually create a big bad or a villain of some sort, and they talk about exactly how you can go about making this nemesis and basically making their gang and their followers and how to do that. So that part is quite nice. What they do is they actually give you what's known as a threat level, is what they basically call it. And basically what you do is you take all the point values associated with that nemesis, and it creates a series of levels of threats. That way you know if your players are strong enough to actually take on this threat overall. So that way as your gangs develop, as the campaign continues, you can really see if you can stand toe-to-toe with the threat level. You also have basically three personal traits that these guys basically have. You basically have like an idea like a mastermind or a brute type of personality trait, and they have like a various associated perks and negatives associated for each one. So that part is kind of nice. And this section here where they talk about using the Untitled Nemesis, what they're doing here is talking about, steps that you can take to actually using this as an arbitrator, how to do it and do it in a balanced way that's fun for your players at the same time, not making it too overpowered as well. I myself have never actually made an Untitled Nemesis before for any one of my campaigns. I'm actually thinking about doing one for an upcoming sump campaign that's set in the sump, where basically they're going to try to hijack a huge cargo vessel that's really protected by some really powerful hired guns. So I'm thinking about doing something like that, and this would be something that would be kind of neat to see for that, which is actually quite nice. So that's an example of something that's new here as well. Another thing that's also new as well is they actually give you some suggestions for making living settings, like creating living settings, how to take your campaigns to another level inside of a living setting. So for example, like going to different parts of the Ashways, like the Dust Falls, for example, they kind of give you some more role-playing aspects of how to make the setting that your campaign takes place a little bit more alive with some additional rules, things of that nature as well. So when it comes to these new items, that part is kind of nice. Now there are some other new rules here too as well, where they have arbitrator scenarios, which are a little bit more of a modification on current scenarios that they have. For example, like one of them is Prison Break, for example, where it's kind of like a play on the original rescue mission, hostage rescue mission type of thing, or instead of you actually trying to rescue your hostage, the prisoner tries to escape. It's basically what they're going to do. Same thing with the monster hunt. You're actually going down and looking for a monster to fight, that kind of stuff as well, which is kind of nice. So these are some examples of some of the new things that they pretty much have going on in this book, and that part is quite nice about that. So now that we're done covering the new materials that are available in this book, let's go ahead and talk about the old material that's actually available for this book. So like I said before at the beginning of this video, unfortunately this book has a lot of material that's already been released up to this point, so that's where kind of the negatives come in. For example, your book gives you an example of Necromunda resurrection packages, right? So they talk about ways that you can bring back fighters from the dead that you might have lost over the course of your campaign, and some interesting game mechanics to bring these guys back and make it look really interesting. The only problem with this, of course, is that these rules have been released already earlier throughout the years, and you can actually find these rules quite easily up on the internet. They're available elsewhere besides this book, or if you even actually have the White Dwarf magazine article that you already have for that. So that's where the problem kind of comes in. Same thing with a lot of these arbitrator scenarios. For example, the prison break one, like I mentioned before. While it is interesting they include this one's also still available in some of the online stuff out there that's out there as well, and that's where the problem comes in. Same thing with the gang raid scenarios. You can find these rules very easily up on the internet as well. Same thing, and this is the part that's really crazy. All of this material here in the right hand column pretty much is available for you to find. For example, the Uprising campaign. The Uprising campaign, for years people have been asking them to release that in a separate book, but they never did that. I'm not sure why they didn't do that. When they actually released the Book of the Ruin about 2 years ago, that would have been a perfect example for them to include those campaign raids, Uprising campaign rules. But they didn't do this. I think the reason why is because they wanted you to buy the starter box set that contained all the terrain from the Zone Mortalis terrain with the enforcers as well as the Corpse Grinder cult. So they never released these on their own. However, with that being said, you can find the Uprising campaign on the internet. You can find that material very, very easily. Necrodemus, for example, is a wonderful resource to find that. The Comprehensive Necromunda rules, for example, is another publication that's available for people to download for free, and you can get that information from there. Same thing with the Uprising campaign scenarios as well. Same problem there. You can find that material for free up on the internet because Games Workshop decided to kind of hold off on these things, so people went elsewhere to find those rules. And so that's where the problem with this book comes in. The same thing with the Outlaw Brutes 2. That was actually held out in Necromunda, out in Games and White Dwarf magazine. You can find those rules on the internet very, very easily. In fact, I've actually have a video coming out this week that talks about all 4 of these because I was able to get that resource from the internet in order to do so. So that part is actually kind of interesting too. Now, this thing about additional clan house vehicle rules as well as Delag Wraiths and Delag vehicle gang tactics. Now, this part is actually kind of interesting. And the reason why is because, okay, so first of all, let's talk about the Delag stuff. So you can get the Delag Wraiths and their vehicles and stuff. You can get that from the Necromunda Apocrypha rules that were released from the Games Workshop Warhammer community website. So if you have that PDF still, you don't really need to worry about it because you already have it. So that's another reason why about it. Now, the additional clan house vehicle rules are kind of interesting because they talk about like how you can use war gear as well as weapons from your house lists and use them on your vehicle, which is actually kind of weird because here's why it's weird. Because in the past, before they actually made this into an official rule, I guess, players automatically did that on their own. For example, let's pretend you're a House Caldor player and you take a custom vehicle of some sort, let's say like a custom medium vehicle, and you decide to mount a heavy crossbow onto that vehicle, right? Well, what usually would happen is that the player would just buy a heavy crossbow for their gang, put it in their stash, and then from their stash, move it to their vehicle. It's something that players and arbitrators have done ever since those rules dropped for the Ash Wastes. So them putting it down as additional clan house vehicle rules is kind of interesting because it's already a game mechanic that a lot of players are already doing to begin with. So you really don't need to cut your teeth on buying this book if you want to get those rules specifically. Now, the Delag vehicle gang tactics, that part is kind of neat. So if you do use vehicle gang tactics, I can see why you want to get this book because that's not available yet, and you could be able to get that for yourself to use if you don't want to use cards. So that is something that is quite nice. But like I said before, the problem with this book is that I would say a good 75 to 80% of this is already released already. So you can find those materials without actually having to buy this book to do so. And that's where the main problem comes in with this book, in my opinion, is that a lot of the materials you see here is available already. And there's not enough new stuff, in my opinion, that is going to really balance against that. And that's where the problem comes in with this Apocrypha book, in my opinion. All right, so let's go over our overall viewpoint on this product. Now, here's the thing, that when it comes down to whatever I want to get a product of any sort, it usually comes down to the price, right? Because my name's Commander Cheapskate, so I'm all about saving money. Now, if you want to pre-order this book and actually buy the physical hard copy, it's going to cost you $50 to buy this book because it is a hardcover book. And if you're planning on getting the digital version, which what I usually do, the reason why I usually get the digital version is for two reasons. One, they're usually cheaper than the hardback editions, and the second reason why I like is because then all my rules are very easy to access because it's done so digitally. Now, like I said before, the hard copy is $50, and the digital version, at least here in the United States, is $37.99 from Apple Books. Is where I usually buy my products from. Okay. Now, here's where the problem comes in. For the price point that you're paying for the materials that are inside this book versus the things that are already been published already and things that you can get access to for free, and when you compare like the price you're paying to the new stuff, you're really paying $50 for a couple things. You're paying $50 if you're doing the hardback anyways, for creating a nemesis, which you can just do on your own anyways without having to use a real rule setting to do that. The living settings, which is kind of nice, but something you can do on your own if you have imagination on your own as well as maybe the Delac vehicle gain tactics, maybe. Same thing with some of the specifics of the additional clan house vehicle rules, really. So the question is, are you willing to pay $50 for those pieces of information, or $37.99 for those pieces of information, or not? And that's what you got to look at it as, because everything else, which is like the Necromunda Micro Resurrection package, arbitrator scenarios, gang race scenarios, uprising campaign scenarios, outlaw brutes, even the Delac Wraith and vehicle upgrades that they can take for the vehicles, all those things are already available for you to find on your own. You can actually find that pretty easily on the internet. And that's where the real problem comes in with this one. For me personally, I'm going to probably skip this one. At $37.99, I really can't justify the cost of actually including those kind of things for myself, not especially considering that like those things will probably be available elsewhere as time goes on. So that's the problem that I'm running into. A lot of these things can be just done just by using your imagination and your own foresight and your own intelligence to create these kind of things. So that's free. That's just you using your own creativity to create those things. You don't necessarily need to buy a rule set to actually do that for yourself. So for me, I'm personally going to skip it. This is probably the first book that I actually skip from Necromunda, just because the price for the things that you're getting from this book, especially considering how about 75 to 80% of this, it's already out there already. That's where the problem comes in for me when it comes to this product as well. So I would recommend that what you would need to do is take a look and see, one, can you get access to these other things? If you can't get access to those other things, then that might be something that might determine your decision-making process. Or if you just want to have like a completionist, you want to complete your collection, that's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's what we do. We buy miniatures to create complete collections. So it's really down to you. For me, I'm going to not do it. But if you want to do so, though, no judgment here. It's entirely up to you how you want to do it. So there you guys go. This is my review of the Apocrypha Necromunda that's coming out here pretty soon. Pre-orders are dropping this last weekend. And as always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good news with you guys. I will catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.